Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Join us here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. William A. Eaddy has been writing ever since he was a little boy. He always knew he would write a book one day, and now he has. He's published insider information, what Wall Street doesn't want your street to know. So obviously you worked on Wall Street.
Yes, I was a former bank executive with JP Morgan Chase and U.S. Bank. Vice president, first vice president, and retail district manager for JP Morgan Chase, managing 13 branches, over $1 billion in assets under management, and over 500 employees. And then for U.S. Bank, it was 12 bank branches, over $1 billion in assets under management, and about 300.
So what made you decide to write this now?
Well, because most people don't have a great grasp of, certainly financial literacy. And those who do pretty much don't know the basics, but I'm coining a phrase, banking literacy, and really educating people to understand that there is a specific value that we as consumers or customers or clients of financial institutions that we have. And, financial institutions need customers more than customers need those financial institutions in many regards. And so it's really just educating people to the why banks actually offer the products and services that they do and the benefit to us, but also empowering the consumer to know the benefit that they are to a financial institution.
So, I think there's a general perception that you can't trust anybody on Wall Street and that they try to sell us these things to make money, So I guess the most important thing is, you're saying that we're more valuable to Wall Street than Wall Street is to us, customers.
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, first of all, the bank can do nothing without money, right? So they need money, they need deposits in order to lend, right? Now, for a bank to be able to be financially fiscal, they have to have as much in deposits as they do in loans outstanding to cover that, right? So the moment, let's just use conservative numbers. If a bank had $100,000 in loans, they have to have $100,000 in deposits. But let's say that a number of customers came in and took out $30,000 in deposits. Mm-hmm. That means that the bank has a deposit balance of 70, while a loan outstanding balance of 100,000. At the end of that business day, if they don't raise $30,000 in deposits, they have to borrow that money. Now the bank becomes a customer to the federal government, and they have to borrow that $30,000 at a much more expensive rate than what we borrow money from the bank. And so banks, in order to avoid that, that's why they come up with different campaigns offering you teaser rates to get you to bring money from another financial institution over to theirs.
Would you say most people don't know that?
You'd be surprised at how many don't. I'll give you another example. Do you carry a debit card?
I do.
Why do you carry a debit card?
So I can pay for stuff.
Okay, so convenience, point of sale, right? Somebody else may say safety, and that's what banks will promote. You should carry a debit card because you can access your cash, you can make point of sales, as well as you can lock your card if you were to lose it. And it's better to carry a card than cash, because if you lost cash, it's gone forever.
Right.
And that's what they will build their commercial on.
Right.
To sell you that. That's not why banks want you to carry a debit card. You think banks really want you to come and get your money?
No.
Exactly. Do you think banks really care if you lose your money?
No.
No, because their money is covered is FDIC insured. You got to prove that you lost it or it was stolen. And if you can't, your fault, right? But the real reason why banks want you to carry a debit card is because the average American uses their debit card 4 times a day. In the morning for coffee, lunch, gas, stop at Walgreens or something.
Right.
Each time you use your debit card, the bank is charging a fee to the business. So let's just say that you're worth a quarter of the transaction. That means to the bank, which they made a part of your way of life, you're going to use your card and constantly drive revenue to them, and they didn't even sell you a product again. You're worth at least $1 every day to a financial institution.
And you think Wall Street doesn't want us to realize that?
Absolutely not.
Should we all give up our debit cards to stick it to the banks?
No, and that's the beauty of the book. I'm not saying for you to be non-trusting of the bank. I'm just revealing to you why banks offer the products and services that they do. And it empowers you and we as a people. So let's say that we got fed up with how our neighborhoods look, and there's a JP Morgan Chase or US Bank or Bank of America in our community that has Community Reinvestment Act agreements with the communities that they will reinvest in the communities that they serve.
Okay.
But let's say that we haven't seen much, and we know that this bank branch has over 10,000 checking customers. What if we were able to rally those customers and say, we really want to see improvements in our neighborhood. We're gonna let Chase know that we haven't seen them do much. And if they don't begin to reinvest in our communities, we won't use our debit cards for a week.
I love that.
So, if that's 10,000 customers, 10,000 customers a day, that's $70,000 after a week. How long do you think Chase is going to continue to lose that revenue simply because they won't do what they said they have an agreement to do, which is reinvest into the community?
Well, how many banks actually do reinvest into the community? How many examples are there of that?
Well, there are many. I know that there are financial institutions, they do it, and they make their annual reports saying where they made their investments. However, along with being in banking, I also was in local politics, and I worked in the city treasurer's office as a project manager and portfolio manager.
What city?
Chicago.
Oh boy.
And so I was part of a group called Advancing Equity and Banking Commission. And we corralled Fifth Third, Chase, US Bank, all of the major banks in Chicago, because financial institutions, especially during the pandemic, we began to visit what banks have done for residents in Chicago. And what we found, unfortunately, is that the more affluent are the ones that got the loans.
Yep.
And those who lived in different areas maybe had the same credit scores that they didn't. And so we actually were able to pull those numbers that show such a disparity, a disgusting wide gap between the majority and the minority in terms of all of us wanting to fulfill our dreams for our families. And it has to be done through financial institutions. But what we found was that many financial institutions, although they may be able to boast, oh, we did 40 million in loans to underserved communities,
right?
They'll leave it at that, but they won't say, well, we did 2 billion to the majority. And so they'll lift up their 40 million because that was an increase from their last year of 30 million. But if you're not paying attention, you think, oh my God, we're getting better and better every year.
Yeah. They bank on you not paying attention.
Exactly. And that's the whole reason for the book.
Okay.
I didn't even tell you why banks actually offer zero balance checking accounts.
Tell me.
Banks offer zero balance checking accounts. They sell it to you that you can access all of your money without overdrawing your account. Mm-hmm. You have the peace of mind of not having to worry about maintaining a minimum balance, so on and so forth. So bank worry free. That's what they'll build their commercial on.
Right.
Banks don't care about you banking worry free. Banks actually are counting on you to overdraw your account because, again, that's a constant revenue driver that they didn't have to sell you another product. This is just from your daily use of their account.
Right.
So they want you to overdraw your account because it's a revenue stream that doesn't stop.
For years I didn't carry a credit card because when we first got married, my husband, he's a spender, right? And next thing I knew, we were like $30,000 in debt or something. And I was like, okay, we're done with credit cards here, babe. No more credit cards. We're not doing the credit cards. Well, as you well know, you have to have a credit card. It ties into your credit score. It's like our whole culture is built around credit.
It's a system.
It's a system. It's a system that
benefits financial institutions, not you.
I do the worst thing ever.
What?
I pay off my balance every month. I have like one credit card.
No, that's not a bad thing. That's an excellent thing.
It is an excellent thing, but they are counting on you. They're counting. Oh, you only have to pay $35.
Correct. No, and that's okay if the limit is maybe something small or something manageable, because you can use it as a tool to build your credit. Right. But the most important thing is your debt to income ratio and what your balance is, as it compares to what the limit is. That's what's most important.
Right.
So if you got $1,000 balance, $1,000 limit, and you got a $300 balance, oh, you're pretty good. But now if you got a $1,000 balance limit and you got a $950 balance on it, now it's affecting your credit. Even if you pay it on time, yeah, your payments are timely, but now the debt to income ratio and the debt to limit ratio has come too close together. Right. So in one aspect, you're going to accomplish your goal, but you don't know you took one step forward and two steps back. It's a balancing act.
You're definitely out talking about this book, I would imagine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Little secret. My dad and my grandfather are pastors, and I'm an associate pastor. So I've watched excellent speakers all my life. So it's just kind of like second nature to stand in front of crowds and speak. And so it's part of what I've done most of my life. As it pertains to this book, people cannot wait. I haven't even done my book signing or announced that the book is released yet, because it's going to be a really, really big event here in Chicago. But they are hungry for it. I mean, every day I'm getting people calling or texting me or on social media saying, how can I get the book? And I'm just telling them, just give me a few more minutes and we'll make it right.
William, I love it. I love this kind of stuff because we don't have enough of it. We're so busy getting through a day.
Yep.
Let me just get the food on the table. Let me get to work. Let me get home. Let me get the kids to practice. You don't really even know what's being done to you or what's going on around you when it comes to your finances in particular. So,
and that's part of the system, right? So when I first started banking, it was a bank called First Chicago that then became Bank One and then JP Morgan Chase. But I'm only saying that to say, I remember when First Chicago, they were the first financial institution, at least here in Chicago, to start charging teller fees if you had to come to the teller window to use a teller. And it was all about programming to get you to go to the ATM. Let me ask you a question. When's the last time you actually walked into a bank branch?
Never.
Exactly.
I never go to a bank unless I have to deposit cash.
Exactly. And the bank wants that. It's less time dealing with you. The only time we really want to talk to you is if we have an opportunity to sell you something. Other than that, going to the ATM is no different than going to Walmart. This is the self-checkout line. If you could do it yourself, do it.
Thank you so much. This was very informative.
Thank you so much.
If you are of a certain age, it's very possible you've heard of Frankie Ray and Mary Ellen, a very popular singing duo in the 70s and 80s who performed around the world. Now, Frank Ortiz shares his story in his book, Frankie Ray and Mary Ellen, We Walked Among the Best, how the children of 4 generations of circus people grew up entertaining and made it to national television and films. So, is this basically an autobiography?
It's more than an autobiography, Alice. Much more, because I started off as a little 4-year-old clown in my father's circus in the Midwest.
What was the name of the circus?
The Ortiz Brothers Circus.
And it started in the Midwest when?
I have in my book, there's a flyer that says 1927.
Wow.
I know. And my father and mother are in that flyer. And the truth is, we followed carnivals and stuff. And it was a hard life, okay? My aunt used to call us gypsies. In a way, we were. We followed the carnivals and people in different cities. And I wanted to get out of that and do something else, and I did. I eventually, when the family finally got a television show in Albuquerque, New Mexico, we were there for like 5 years live on TV, and I did 2 performances per week on the show. And my brothers, the 2 brothers and sister who were the main act on the show, all of a sudden they got lucky and they won the Arthur Godfrey show, and they went off to Vegas with Sammy Davis for 6 months, and the show went off the air, and I was left behind, and I couldn't get a show on my own. I was too young. I was like 16 years old. So I got a job as a busboy in a hotel. And people would come in and say, aren't you the singer on the Ortiz family show? And I say, yes, I am. Would you like some more water? There are so many, many highlights in the book. I went to Canada, and I found out that if I had a large repertoire of songs, I would do good anywhere. So I learned to sing almost in 7 different languages. And finally, after 12 years in Canada, I worked my way back to New York. And one day somebody said they need a singer for a bar mitzvah at a very beautiful restaurant. So I went there, and I was a big hit in the bar mitzvah because I could sing in Yiddish. And the owner of the restaurant came in and said to me, hey, kid, I want to talk to you in my office. So I went into his office and says, you want to work for me? And I said, well, I'd love to. It was a very elegant place, and all the movie stars and celebrities came in there. And I was there for like 6 years, singing 5 nights a week. And he gave me good money, an indoor garage right across the street, and food if I wanted to eat anything. And that's where I met Steve Lawrence and Eaddy Gourmet, who became my managers. And I met so many people. The highlight of my career was doing an album on ABC Paramount Records where Bob Thiel, who wrote Wonderful World, produced it. But the highlight of the whole book really was when I finally met my wife, Mary Ellen Patricia McClellan O'Shaughnessy.
Oh, my goodness.
And we hit it off really well. And when I first met her, before she sang a note, I looked into her eyes and I said, this woman's going to be my wife for the rest of my life. We spent 47 years, not as a marriage, but more like a honeymoon. I mean, we got jobs in Rome, Italy at the Excelsior Hotel. I mean, we just toured the world, Spain, Tangier, Bogota, Colombia, all the islands. We performed together at the Drake Hotel in Chicago, and they liked us so much. We did 2 shows a night with a big orchestra, and then we did 2 shows a night in the lounge by ourselves. We went there for 2 weeks and stayed there for 5 years.
That's great. So you had a great career.
Great life. I mean, at the Drake, we had a suite, an indoor garage. Then we ended up at the Diplomat in Hollywood, Florida. The owners were so beautiful to us. Twice a month, they brought in a big star into the place to perform, like Tony Bennett or something. And when these stars came in, Frankie Ray and Mary Ellen did not sing in the lounge. And we had to go into the main celebrity party because the owners loved us so much and they liked what we looked like. And then we come from there after 2 years to Marco Island, Florida, again for a 2-week engagement. Our manager by this time could have booked us for at least 6 months, but he booked us for 2 weeks. And we were at the Marco Beach Hotel for 3 years. We were held over. And then when Marriott Sr. bought the hotel, I saw him in the parking lot, and I said to him, Mr. Marriott, do you remember me? He says, do you still sing Streets of Laredo? Because when I was at the Essex House in Central Park South in New York City, every time he had a party, he would invite me to come and sing for them. So I said to him, Mr. Marriott, I hear you're going to get rid of everything, including the entertainers. He says, yes, I am, with the exception of you and your wife, you're staying. So we were there for another 3 years. We were 6 years at the Marriott. Then after that, we went off to get married, and we went to California. We went to the Biltmore Hotel where we were at for 2 years. We were held over because we had over 200 songs repertoire in our head, jazz, Johnny Cash, everything. all different types of music, rock and roll, if they want it. So we took show business as a business and didn't do like, oh, we're going to be rock and rollers or we're going to be this or that. We did everything to please everyone. By the way, Rocky Graziano, Rocky Marciano, all these people, Sammy Davis were friends of mine. One night I'm singing a song because Ed Sullivan asked me to sing it on a clear day. And I sang it for him. And he says, "Young man, you have a lot of talent. Here's my card. Come and see me." I didn't go see him because I had just signed with Steve and Eaddy, Steve Lawrence and Eaddy Gourmet. And a month later, I'm singing it in my own arrangement. Sammy Davis comes in. He says, "Hey, Frankie, baby, sing that song again." So I sang it. A couple of weeks later, a month later, he comes out with one of his biggest hits. On a clear day, rise, look around you, and a jazz beat, the way I was singing it. And I say in one of the videos, he gave me $50, but I'm honored that Sammy Davis liked my arrangement of a song I was singing. You know, I've been writing this book for the past 20 years. I kept telling my wife I'm going to write a book, and I started putting things on tape. Finally, after we had our own restaurant on Marco Island for 14 years, and we were a big success, especially since we wrote the official song of the island, Marco Memories. You can hear it on YouTube, and we're also in the Museum of Marco Island. I just felt that I had enough to tell in my book that would be interesting.
You could go out and talk, you could go out and sing, you could play your old recordings, you could do like a whole thing just around your book.
Yes, I've been invited to Seed to Tables. It's a gigantic place here in Naples. Thousands of people go there every day. And they invited me to do a book signing after November.
That's great.
Oh, yes. Right now, I'm doing videos. I've got 30 videos on the networks. And as of yesterday, there are 22 million people listening to my videos. I have a man who loves me as a friend. He's my grandson's uncle, and he keeps tabs of every song that's on the networks. And he says, "Look, this one did 500."
On YouTube?
Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, videos that I have been making recently with my guitar.
And putting them all over social media.
Yes, and I first mentioned my book, and I tell people, like last night, I did a video here by myself, and I said, I urge you to buy my book to help our veterans, which I'm giving 40% of, and also to Food for the Poor, because they, I would give them everything of the book just to make the book successful, because the story of it, I'm very proud of.
All right. So everybody should look for Frankie Ray and Mary Ellen on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You're all over the place. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. And God bless you, and God bless everyone that might buy my book.
Zane Dacus is living his dream in Missoula, Montana, finally able to retire and write after a career as a CPA. Now he's published his first book entitled Found Objects, the first of a 6-part series based in part on his childhood.
Well, I always enjoyed, just relating people's stories of my childhood, because I grew up in I guess unusual for now. I mean, I grew up on a ranch in East Texas, and had that kind of ranch life. And I would be talking about our childhood, and I'd throw something out. Yeah, I remember when we did this, and they're like, "You're kidding me? You really did that?" I said, "Yeah, that was just our life, because it was an unusual life." So I decided to set the book in that kind of that setting, the ranch growing up, but a different kid growing up for me that has a little sister. And there were 5 of us when I was growing up, 5 kids in my family. And then it kind of took a life of its own. I started writing, okay, well, here's some interesting things that happen. And also I have a strong opinions about, social justice, because I grew up it was in the South. My formative ages were in the 60s. it was, just a different time. And we complain about racial justice now, but there it was worse but different. I mean, and then also put in enough action and interesting, and hopefully some comedy that will keep a reader interested throughout.
So how do you lay the story out?
The main character is Martin Davis in the book. And the story starts out about events that happened previously. It's like an opening venue of a movie you might see where, here's what happened 8 or 10 years ago, and lay it out where some people are killed, but it's all kind of buried and forgotten. And then it goes on to this boy and his dad, who they would do as a hobby, go around and try to collect Indian artifacts from Native American camps that were on the ranch where they live, which is true. And they found something that kind of connected back to that previous event. He finds something that he thinks is a piece of pottery or something like that. And his dad looks at it, no, he thinks it's a bone, but of a horse or a deer or something like that. And his dad said, no, that's a bone. And it was a part of someone's cranium from being shot in the head. That was discussed in the first chapter. That was revealed in the first chapter. So the boy gets interested in that, says, and convinces himself that there's some sort of Indian burial ground in that neighborhood, and he could go and excavate it and find all kinds of treasure. Being an 8-year-old kid, so he pursues that in future chapters, and then finds some things that don't fit with that. Of course, not an Indian burial ground, but I find paperwork and things like that was from an architectural site, which relates back to the first chapter. And so his dad looks at that and says, well, there were a lot of things that happened here just before his dad became foreman of the ranch. And there was a different guy there, and this couple that had been working on the excavation disappeared, and no one knew what happened to them. But he thought this was a connection to that. And he had been in World War II. And he had a friend from his military days that was now a captain with the Texas Rangers. And so he calls him and gets him to send some people down, some forensic people down to investigate. And then that leads to them saying, yeah, something did happen. These people were murdered, and so on and so on. And so that is going on at the same time. And then that comes to a culmination, towards latter stages of the book, where the Texas Rangers come down and have to put down some local groups that were connected to Ku Klux Klan in the days, and led by the local sheriff in this county where they lived.
Whoa, boy, you tie in a lot of interesting stuff
here. And it's not, one of the things been gratifying for me, people that read the book, they just say, like, I just fell in love with that boy, and I think, he has a very righteous sense about how the world works, and is very open to things. And, it kind of shows you how, kids, thought process can go to build them up and make them into a fine adult, or can, twist them into being something different than that. And this kid, fights the good fight, and continues to, show a lot of love for the rest of the world around him, and then backed by his actions in defending them when they need it, and gets that in return from his friends and the people in the community. And then also just how, as many people have done before, just as an observer, because I've always felt like I was like that as a child, and as an adult, I was a good observer of what's going on around me, and it helped me to form my own kind of personal belief system. And this, you get that from this young man too, as he observes things, he sorts them out and tries to figure out what's best. And sometimes things work out for him well, and sometimes they don't, as with all of us.
Right, but it sounds like he has a moral compass.
Well, he does. He's he's a remarkable child, and of course that fits into those special talents that he has. That initially he notices them, but he doesn't know how to explain them. And then over time he'll get a better grasp of it. But there's, again, in that first chapter, there's a hint to what that might be from.
Okay.
And but the child's not aware of it, you know. So
Wow.
the reader might be, but not the
Might
child.
be, but the child not. All right.
Well, meaning that there's those hints in that first chapter that if they put two and two together, they can say, okay, well, this is something, you know, something remarkable about this little baby. At the time, he was just a little baby in the first chapter. And then you realize later on that he was that little baby when after they do all this investigative work. And so he relates these special talents that he has, and that kind of connects you back to the idea that there's something in going forward that will be interesting to see how that develops as he realizes his potential and abilities.
And you're going to continue this over 6 books.
That's correct. Yeah, this is the first of 6, and I'm working on the second one. I'd like to get one done a year.
So how are you telling people about it?
When the book was first published in late 2023, I did send out, I have a big list of contacts, you know, my personal contacts from my both personal and working career. And I got quite a, you know, it's just sent a note out to everybody, you know, hey, look, I've written this book, and a lot of them knew that I was aiming for that. So the people did buy the book around that, but that was all across the country, and do have some friends here in town that can help me with the people that run the local bookstores. And it's a very active community here. It's not like some towns. That was one of the things I did when I was judging places I might want to live, is how many bookstores do they have per capita, you know, that sort of thing. But they've kind of been a disappearing thing, but here it's a very vibrant locally owned bookstore community.
That's great. And you've got a university right there, so.
Exactly. Yeah. The universities. And I live in what they call the University District in Missoula. So the university is really about 3 blocks from where I live.
Zane, I can't wait to talk to you when the second book comes out.
Oh, I'll be looking forward to that as well, Alice. And thank you.
You got it. Bye-bye. Michael G. Wright is a public safety officer who writes poems like the ones you'll find in his book, Poetic Relationship Moments. But writing was actually your job, right, at one point?
So, yeah, I graduated from Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, and I became a reporter for Hartford Current newspaper and also the Record Journal newspaper.
How long did you do that?
5 years.
Okay.
And then I branched off into while I was a reporter, I was doing security on the weekends at some very rough clubs. And because of that, I got into mixed martial arts, and I graduated into managing clubs, and then finally owning my own nightclub, owning my own security service, and also becoming a public safety officer. And I always kept up my writing.
Mostly poetry?
Yeah. I always enjoyed that on my own. I didn't publish anything, but just for my own enjoyment.
So why now?
Because I promised myself sooner or later, and hopefully sooner than later, that I would do this. And it was last summer, actually. You know, I said to myself, I said, you know what? I said, I've been always talking about doing this book thing. And I said, you know what? Let's do this. Instead of thinking about it, let's sit down and do it. So I just sat down and started doing it. It took me about 3.5 months to put together those 52 poems that make up my book.
Were the 52 poems already written?
No, because the stuff that I wrote before, separate from what I put here in the book.
What do the poems talk about?
The poems in the book talk about relationships, and specifically just the things that we all go through, you know, from first date all the way that it evolves into getting to know each other more and being closer, and then, you know, hopefully leading to marriage and thereafter. Unfortunately, it only ends 2 ways. People pass away, and that's why relationships are broken, or they get a divorce. That, you know, those are the only 2 ways that happens.
Right.
But I've always been interested in, I mean, we've all been through relationships. That's a common bond that we all have, no matter what race you are, what culture, you know. That's the commonality that we have. No one truly wants to be alone. No one wants to be alone. Everybody wants somebody in their life on a romantic level. I didn't say everybody wants to get married, but you want somebody in your life next to you to a point. So that's a thing that we can all identify with. And I just thought it was just, something that again, everybody can identify with. And I enjoy living my life through just having relationships and getting to know people and learning from them. And I said, hey, you know what? Let me write a book about relationships from beginning to the end.
Do you have a favorite poem?
My favorite poem is from Maya Angelou, I Rise.
That's a favorite of a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
It's one of her most famous poems.
Yeah, very inspirational.
Yeah.
Very inspirational right there. A poem that I've written, I mean, in the book, my favorite poem is the third one, and it's called Colorblind. And it's about interracial relationship. And I've been through it, and the good and the bad. And it's very deep, very, very personal to me. And that is my favorite because of the ups and downs and just what you're willing to go through for the other person, despite what the world thinks. It's for you both to be happy.
Do you want to read a little bit of it?
Yeah.
Well, go for it.
So, colorblind. Color shouldn't matter in this equation. It's about human relations. Loved you from first sight. Getting to know you was more than right. I was afraid to show my emotions. Thought I would drown in your ocean. We are so strong together, looking like two birds wearing the same feathers. Throwing your hate at us just increases our trust. Anybody doubting our existence will be overwhelmed by our persistence. We have a goal of our own. Neither of us will end up alone. Calling us names won't bring shame to our game. We've survived worst. Our love won't fit in a hearse. Of course, we'll love each other tomorrow. Not going to face any sorrow. Our complexions won't hold us back. God is our witness, and that's a fact. Our skins are not the same. However, it's more important to share a last name. My heart will eventually expire, but our love won't retire. My feelings for you are beyond what is true. We have been through thick and thin. At the end, we always win. This is not easy to keep together, harder than predicting the weather. Sometimes we need our separate space to help us reach a better place. Not so easy to follow that advice. God and you told me twice. Pleasing everyone is not the way. We need love to get us through another day. Again, we will laugh about what others say, since I am your night and you're my day. Those who never try won't ever see past their eyes.
Very nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I got to say, and I'm sorry, I got to say that if you ask me where all my poetry comes from, the original was when I was in third grade, and two girls that I liked, their names were Sarah and Nicole. And I want to express to them that I like them. I know I like two girls at once. Crazy, right? And I want to tell them, I liked them, but I was really scared to say it out of my mouth. I was nervous. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper. I got two pieces of paper and wrote them both the same poem, and I handed it to them when we were on our bicycles. And it's something that I like them. That was the first poem in my whole entire life.
That's so cute, Michael. That is so cute. Now, is there a place in Connecticut where are there open mic nights near you where you can go out and read your stuff?
But and I always said that I should go out and do that. I just have not yet. And in New Haven, of course, like New Haven and Hartford, the bigger cities there, they have that open mic, poetry slams, and I just never went to one.
So you gonna now?
I said to myself that I started looking it up actually up to about like 3 months ago, and I said I got to make time for it. I just have not. I've been promoting the book in whole other ways, social media, and some other companies have just been doing promotions. In fact, I am going to be on a digital billboard in Times Square for the next 6 months, starting next month.
Wow, you must have paid a price for that.
Right there. It was a good deal. It was a good deal. So one day a month, starting next month, the 28th, pretty much of every month, I will be on there.
You will be on a digital billboard in Times Square. Yeah. Is your face going to be up there?
My face and the book.
Wow. Okay. You going to go down there and take a picture of it?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be on video and the pictures and everything like that. And it's actually the dimensions. It's 31 feet tall and 55 feet wide.
Wow. That's big.
Yeah. Yeah, the big ones.
Michael, are you going to keep writing?
I am going to keep writing because, one thing about writing, even from, when I was reporting and everything, it's something that I would do for free because you love it. So it's not a job for me. It's a passion. I do it to express myself, to help to clear my thoughts. And, I love it. So I appreciate writing in every form. It's a great thing. And it's nice to have education behind it. And it's nice to make money from it. So I will keep writing to the end of time. I hope this book that I wrote here, I hope to bring it to the next level. And I'll tell you the next level for me, which I'm currently working on, and it seems to be working out, is making a movie out of this book.
Okay.
Right here.
Well, keep me posted on that, Michael.
Yeah, I'm working with a production company now, and I wrote the screenplay, and they love it. And hopefully things pan out, and by next year, signing the contract and getting it going. But they love it. And a lot of people would never think that you can actually make a movie out of a poetry book, but because again I set it up as relationship book, some two folds. One for advice to a point, and secondly for a stroll down memory lane. We've been through it and we go, hey, I know how that feels, and I never let that happen again, or hey, I love that feeling and I'd love to relive that kind of thing. But Amazon's been very good to me. Barnes & Nobles, and my book's on it, along with the audio book version of it. And I love it. I appreciate it, and organizations like yours to help me just promote.
All right, Michael, we do what we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.